Hello, good day to you all. Today we are going to be looking at another African poem, The Grieved Land of Africa by Augustinho Neto. We have discussed this poem before. We discussed the stanza by stanza analysis of the poem, and I discussed it in detail in one of the previous videos. So if you haven't listened or watched that, you can also access it from the channel. Today we are going to be looking at the poetic devices in the poem, and for the benefit of those who have not listened to the who have not watched the first video on the analysis of the poem itself, the poem is all about the African land. Why is the land of Africa grieved? And what really happened that led to the grieving of the land? It was because of the invasion of the colonialists. And in the first video, I also discussed extensively the background of the poet Augustinho Neto. I told you he's from Angola, and then the colonial administration in Angola suffered him a lot, imprisoned him because of his anti-colonial posture, and then the demand for independence of Angola. So it was during that period that he wrote this poem, that the land is grieved because the colonialists have desecrated the land, and several people have been killed on the land, war going on, a lot of deforestation happening as a result of the colonialist penchant desire to get gold, to get rubber, and to get some mineral resources and natural gift from Africa to their own country. And as a result of that, what the land of Africa have for the people of Africa is being taken away by people that are not African, and that also made the land grieve. So you can as well pause the video to get detail of the subject matter, and you can also watch the first video which we discuss extensively the subject matter of the poem, the stanza by stanza analysis. Now we are going to the poetic devices used in the poem, and also we see that one of the major poetic device used in the poem is language and style. And note that the poem was not originally written in English, it was written in Portuguese, which is the colonial master of the Angolan people at that time. So it was translated to English because of its universal continental African theme that it has. And as a result of that, you can see that the Grieved Land of Africa as a poem has become not only a poem that is considered in Angola or in Africa, but it has become a poem that portrays and also reference what the Africans experienced during the colonial era. So we see also that the language is simple, in the sense that the message is passed in a straightforward way where people can easily understand what the poet means. And also looking at another one is the diction. What is the form of diction used in the poem? We also see that the word used in the poem are very simple words within the grasp of students, at least from secondary to tertiary level. Somebody who studied this poem should be able to understand the poem line by line, especially the diction, and also the words such as grief, reveal, where the main meaning of the poem is hidden, because grief and tearful words are some of the symbols, are some of the words used to represent the experiences of the Africans during the colonial era. So the land is grieved, the land is angry, and at the same time, the people are shedding a tearful words. Why? Because of the dehumanizing treatment meted to them by the colonial masters. The tone of the poem is that of lament, and at the same time that of hope. From the beginning of the poem, we saw a lot of lament. Augustinho Neto, or the persona in the poem, lamenting that the people of Africa have been subjected to a lot of dehumanizing treatment, and the land is totally grieved because the natural gift in the land is being taken away by strangers, by colonialists, and even the Africans are also being taken away. Transatlantic trade happens during this period, and several Africans were taken from the African continent to the European countries and even to the United Kingdom at that time for slavery purpose. And so both those who are in African continent and those who have been sold into slavery were all suffering and shedding tearful woes because of the treatment, because their land have been taken away from them, and not only taken away, have been discredited also. So we saw that the tone is lament, and then towards the end of the poem, we could see a ray of hope, because it said that the Africans will not give up, and the land as well cannot die. So we saw that the last four stanzas demonstrate the resilient nature of Africans and their hope for freedom from the European exploitation, freedom from colonialism, freedom from dehumanizing treatment by the colonial masters. So, and we saw eventually that the poet Augustinho Neto later became the first president, or the first independent president of Angola. So the hope which served as a form of prophecy came to pass in a way that Africa actually or eventually got their independence from the colonial masters. Now let's look at the mood of the poem. The mood of the poem is that of worry, and at the same time that of optimism. Worry, concern, and optimism. The persona is concerned about the treatment of the Africans, is worried about the discretion of the land, and then is optimistic that a day is coming when the land will be sanctified, will be purified, and then the Africans will also be free from the colonial exploitation. And that eventually came to pass when the poet Augustinho Neto became the president of Angola. And gradually we saw that all African countries eventually got liberated from the shackles of colonialism. So we saw that in the first three stanzas, the reader is worried and concerned about the dehumanizing treatment of Africa by the Europeans, by the colonial masters. And then we saw that towards the end of the poem, the reader is also optimistic that since the Africans did not give up and the land did not die, eventually the Africans are going to conquer one day. The Africans are going to be free at a time in future. And eventually the Africans got freedom from the colonial masters. So another dominant poetic device in the poem is that of personification. This is one of the dominant poetic device in the poem, because from the title of the poem we can see the element of personification. The grieved land of Africa. Can the land be grieved? That is an attribute of human being given to inanimate thing. So on the literal interpretation we can say that land cannot be grieved. So from the title we saw the use of personification. The land is personified and giving human quality, which is grieving, which is anger. And we also saw that the grieved is repeated few times in the poem. So we also see the wickedness of iron and fire, which is also part of I think one of the stanzas in the poem. So iron cannot be wicked, and then fire may not also be wicked as well. So we can see that the wickedness of iron and fire is also another examples of personification. So wickedness can be attributed to animate thing, to living things, not to fire, not to iron. But here we saw that the wickedness of iron and fire is wickedness is attributed to iron and fire. Now let's look at another poetic device in the poem. Another poetic device in the poem is the use of repetition. In the poem, several words were repeated. Grieve is repeated 9 times in the poem. And then we saw sensation repeated 2 times in stanza 2 and 3. And then we also saw that the words alive and lives and life were repeated, or the variant used more than one occasion. So we saw that several words are repeated, and the emphasis on the grief made it to be repeated 9 times. Made it to be repeated 9 times. So we saw that the grieved land, the land is really grief for the persona or for the poet to emphasize on the grief for several times, almost in every stanza. It is repeated, and we saw that not only the line in consecutive poetic line, also in stanza 2, in stanza 3, in line 2, in line 3, in line 33, in line 34, in line 35, we saw the repetition of life and lives. So these are some of the words repeated in the poem. And as well, we have alliteration. Some of the repetitions of consonant sound in the poem. Let's look at them. In line 3, we have degrading dance. You can see the repetition of the consonant sound there, which is D and D. Then in line 4, we also see sweat sea, which you can see the as consonant sound. And then in line 8 and 9, we saw the flower forest repeated in lines. So that is also another use of consonant sound there, alliteration there. Then we in line 30, jingling jailers, Victoria's voice in line 14, and then in line 20 we have baobabs balances. So the use of the consonant sound B here is also repeated in line 20. Now let's look at another poetic device, which is metaphor. What is metaphor? I believe you have a good understanding of the word of the literary device metaphor. Now the direct comparison of 2 things. Now we have of other seas, that refers to colonial masters countries. This metaphor is deployed to show how the imperialists journey into Africa. So in several instances, we have been told by the colonialists or the modern Europeans that the colonialists came to Africa to civilize Africa. Can you imagine the Europeans, if they do not have any benefit or they do not have any interest on our natural resources, how will they journey, spend their money all the way from their countries and continent to the African continent to come and civilize Africa? Was it really a civilization or a destruction of African civilization? We'll discuss on that next time. So look at another use of metaphor, impure dance. It's also a metaphorical statement representing colonial nuances. And then we have flowers, which is also a metaphor for Africans, like the negritude poet who upheld the beauty of Africa, and the persona likens African people to flower but are crushed by slavery. Now one of the negritude poets is Senghor, Leonard Senghor, the former president of Senegal. And we have other negritude poets who, through their poem, try to eulogize, to praise the beauty of Africa and the beauty of the black people. So perhaps it's also the Africans first and viewed to be inferior to the colonial masters, struggling for balances with the masters. Iron and fire is also another metaphor for slavery. Then existence, metaphor for people endowed to fight for and defend the African dreams. Okay. Now, what is the structure of the poem? The poem has 7 divisions of unequal line content. We have the first 3 stanzas are spent on African griefs. The other 4 stanzas center on demonstrating that both Africans and their land live in spite of years of denigration, of oppression, of exploitation. So we see that the poem is structured into about 9 stanzas of unequal lines. Now the setting of the poem is where? The setting of the poem is in Africa. It's in the land of Africa. It's in the land of Africa. And also we are told that the land is grieved. So according to the poem, Africa had been subjected to centuries of different kinds of war in the hand of the Europeans, in the hand of the colonialists. So they dealt with Africa as if they were mere merchandise, usable, expendable, and exportable. And that was why they took some Africans, those able-bodied men, and some women, and exported them to their country like goods, and used them as slaves, working in their plantain, in their sugarcane plantations, and in other different farms. So Africans have been made to suffer from the tearful woes of ancient and modern slaves. And also the poet laments that despite the abolition of the slave trade, there is a neo-slavery, a modern slavery, which the Europeans have subjected Africans to. How? The poet also impliedly reference the use of all, like Western Union is money transfer. The use of maybe printing our currency in the European countries. The European organizations or the organizations controlled by the Europeans dictating to us how to manage our economy. And then African countries borrowing from the European countries. This left to them in the area of loan. Hardly will you see any African country that is not indebted to one of the white people's country. Either China, either a country from the Europe, either from the United States, or either from the United Kingdom. Hardly will you see any an African country that is not indebted. And that is a neo-slavery. It's a modern slavery. So we have class activity. Now mention other literary devices that you can find in the poem. So for you to answer this question 1 carefully, very well, you need to go through the poem, or as well go through the video, the first video where the poem is discussed, and then summarize the message of the poem in 1 or 2 sentences. What is the message of the poem? From the preview of the subject matter in this video, you can also be able to do it, or from your own study of the poem, The Grieved Land of Africa, you should be able to at least summarize the message of the poem. So thank you very much. We are going to be discussing other African poems, novels, and plays. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, then click the notification bell to get notified, to get updated when the video is uploaded. Thank you. Thank you. Thank